Welcome back to our series on Jainism, Dharma, and environmental ethics. In our last video, we introduced the concept of Dharma. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most fundamental principles of Jainism, Ahimsa, or non. Now, when most of us hear nonviolence, we might think of not getting into a fight or avoiding physical conflict. But in Jainism, Ahimsa is a much more profound and all-encompassing concept. It's not just an action, or rather, a non-action. It is a way of life that shapes everything from what you eat, to how you walk, and even what you possess. It is a guiding principle that has shaped Jain lifestyle choices for over 2,500 years, creating what we might today call the ultimate eco-friendly philosophy. So how does this work in practice? Jain philosophy has a fascinating way of looking at the world. It classifies all living beings based on the number of senses they possess. This isn't just an abstract intellectual exercise. It forms the very basis of ethical action. At the bottom of this hierarchy are the one-sensed beings, or echondria. This group includes not just plants, but also earth, water, fire, and air. Yes, you heard that right. In Jain thought, the very elements of our planet are considered living entities, each with a sense of touch. Then we move up the ladder. Two-sensed beings, like worms and shells, have touch and taste. Three-sensed beings, like ants and lice, add the sense of smell. Four-sensed beings, such as bees and flies, can also see. And at the top are the five-sensed beings, which include humans, mammals, birds, and fish, who possess all five senses: touch, taste, smell, sight, and hearing. This detailed classification is crucial because it informs the principle of Ahimsa. The core idea is that all life, in every form, is sacred and possesses a soul, or jiva. Therefore, the goal is to cause the least amount of harm possible to any living being. For Jain monks and nuns, who take the strictest vows, this means avoiding harm to all forms of life, including those one-sensed beings. This is why you might see them gently sweeping the path before they walk, to avoid stepping on insects, or wearing a cloth over their mouths to prevent accidentally inhaling tiny organisms. They're trying to live in a way that minimizes their impact on the entire web of life, from the smallest microbe to the largest animal. For lay Jains, or householders, the rules are a bit different, but still deeply rooted in Ahimsa. The primary focus is on avoiding harm to beings with two or more senses, essentially all animals, insects, and other mobile creatures. This is where the practice of strict vegetarianism comes in. For Jains, vegetarianism isn't just a dietary preference. It's a moral and spiritual imperative. It's the most direct and practical application of Ahimsa in daily life. Consuming meat is seen as a direct act of violence against a five-sensed being, a creature capable of feeling pain and fear. So, a vegetarian diet is the absolute baseline for anyone following the Jain path. But it often goes even further than that. Many Jains also practice veganism, avoiding all animal products like milk, cheese, and honey, because they believe the production of these items can involve cruelty or exploitation of animals. Think about the dairy industry. For example, the constant cycle of impregnation and separation of calves from their mothers is seen as causing immense suffering, or the collection of honey, which can harm or kill bees. The dietary restrictions can get even more specific, extending to the plant kingdom. Many devout Jains avoid eating root vegetables like potatoes, onions, garlic, and carrots. Why? There are a couple of reasons. First, uprooting the plant kills the entire organism, whereas picking a fruit or a leaf often allows the plant to continue living. Second, and this is a really interesting part, root vegetables are believed to be home to a multitude of microscopic life forms. A single potato bulb could contain countless tiny organisms. By consuming it, one would be inadvertently causing harm to a vast number of living beings. This level of mindfulness extends to other areas as well. For instance, food that has been left out for a long time might be avoided because of the potential for fermentation and the growth of microorganisms. Water might be filtered to remove tiny life forms before drinking. It's a diet that is incredibly conscious of its impact on the world, right down to the microscopic level. What's truly remarkable is how these ancient ethical principles are now being validated by modern science, especially in the context of our current environmental crisis. For centuries, Jain ethics have taught that a meat-based diet is inherently violent. Today, scientific research is telling us it's also environmentally catastrophic. Let's look at the numbers. The global livestock industry is one of the single largest contributors to climate change. According to major studies, it's responsible for a massive percentage of our total greenhouse gas emissions. In fact, some analysis showed that raising animals for food produces more greenhouse gases than all the cars, planes, trains, and ships in the world combined. That is a staggering statistic. The production of meat requires vast amounts of land, leading to deforestation, particularly in places like the Amazon rainforest. It consumes enormous quantities of water. Producing a single pound of beef can take thousands of gallons of water, and it's a leading cause of water pollution due to animal waste runoff. In essence, what Jainism identified as a spiritual and ethical problem thousands of years ago, we now recognize as a full-blown ecological disaster. This is where we can see the deep connection between Jain Dharma and environmental ethics. The path to spiritual purity through nonviolence is also the path to a sustainable planet. Let's put this in a global perspective. Despite rapid globalization and economic growth, India's overall meat consumption per capita remains one of the lowest in the world. This isn't an accident. It's the direct result of the deeply ingrained cultural and religious traditions of Dharma, particularly those from Jainism, Buddhism, and certain schools of Hinduism, which have promoted vegetarianism for millennia. These traditions have acted as a powerful cultural buffer against the Western still meat-heavy diet that has become so prevalent elsewhere. In a way, India's ancient wisdom has given it a massive head start in the race for a sustainable food future. This brings us to a crucial contrast with how environmentalism is often approached in the West. Western environmental movements have traditionally focused on large-scale, top-down solutions. We talk about government policies, international treaties like the Paris Agreement, carbon taxes, and technological fixes like renewable energy and electric cars. These things are, of course, incredibly important. We absolutely need systemic change. However, there's often a missing piece in this conversation: personal responsibility and lifestyle. The Western model often allows for a strange disconnect, where one can drive an electric car and use solar panels while still consuming a diet that has a massive carbon footprint. It rarely asks the individual to fundamentally question their consumption patterns. Jain ethics challenges this entire approach. It flips the script and starts with the individual. It doesn't begin by asking, what laws can the government pass? It begins by asking a much deeper, more personal question. How much is enough? This question is at the heart of Jain environmentalism. The principle of Ahimsa naturally leads to a life of simplicity and reduced consumption. Vegetarianism is the first step, but is complemented by other key practices. One is fasting, which is a regular part of Jain life. Fasting is not only seen as a way to purify the body and soul, but it is also a direct way to reduce consumption and give the digestive system and the planet's resources a rest. Another cornerstone principle is aparigraha, which means non-possessiveness or non-accumulation. This is the idea that we should not desire or hold on to more than what we truly need. In a world driven by consumerism, where we're constantly told to want more, buy more, and have more, aparigraha is a radical act. It's a conscious choice to live with less. It's about recognizing that every object we own has an environmental cost in its production, its transportation, and its eventual disposal. By practicing non-accumulation, Jains naturally minimize their ecological footprint. They were practicing minimalism and conscious consumption long before these became trendy buzzwords. By combining vegetarianism, fasting, and non-accumulation, Jains have been reducing their impact on the planet for centuries, long before the term ecological footprint even existed. So, what can we all learn from this? The Jain perspective offers a powerful and necessary complement to our modern environmental discourse. It reminds us that technology and policy alone won't save us. True, lasting change must also come from within. It has to be rooted in our ethics, our values, and our daily choices. Jainism teaches us that environmental responsibility isn't something we can just outsource to governments or corporations. It begins on our plates, in our homes, and in our hearts. It starts when we ask ourselves that simple but profound question: how much is enough? It begins with a conscious choice to live with compassion and to recognize that our personal actions have a ripple effect on the entire web of life. Jainism shows us that our relationship with the environment is, at its core, a reflection of our relationship with ourselves and with all other living beings. The path to a healthier planet is inseparable from the path of personal and spiritual growth. It reminds us that the most powerful tool for change we have is the choices we make every single day. Thank you for watching this second part of our series. In our final video, we will explore the concepts of anekantivada, or non-absolutism, aparigraha, non-possessiveness in more detail, and see how these principles can help us build a more tolerant, just, and sustainable world. I hope you'll join me for that. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if you found it valuable. See you in the next one.